Canadians are hurt. Canadians are angry.
Mostly at you.
Mostly at you, yeah.
Get to the point, buddy.
We're going to choose.
Get to the point, buddy.
I'll go on vacation in Florida.
There
Or,
you go.
Saying we don't want you here, and we don't want you here because of, tell me where this sounds familiar, because of immigration reform, inflation, and the overall economy.
After I watched this video, there was a couple people that reacted to this
and what's
video.
about to happen in their
Canadian
election
ones.
is
Yeah.
not
Watch the
very
Liberals.
different.
Pierre, your hero that you guys wanted does not want to work. I hope Canadians see this and send it around and blast him and encourage him to go talk to the biggest podcast in Canada. He's not too good for podcasts in Canada. He's only talking to Jordan Peterson. Go talk to the people.
Because Jordan Peterson's a Canadian.
You say you want to be a man of the
Canadians
people, go be
pay
the man of the
attention to him.
people. That's what Milei did.
I think we've
That's
heard
what
enough
others
of this
do.
guy's opinions.
Lock
Why don't
behind
we
camera
start
just
giving
talking to
our
Jordan
opinion
Peterson, a
on what we
mainstream
think
type
of
people.
PBD?
This is 2025.
It's 2025. What do we think of PBD's video? What do you think, Josh? What did that?
You go first, Josh.
What did that make you think?
I thought PBD was sadly uninformed. He's usually informed and used to make some pretty good educational videos. And this point, he just said a whole bunch of things that just weren't factually true. It's number one of them. Polyevrier. How did he say it?
A couple of different ways.
Yeah, Polivier or something.
Olivier. Well,
Yeah, I was trying to say it
that's
like
a
he
tough.
was
That's a tough one for
That is tough.
Poliver or
Poliver.
Poliver.
I think he says Polyev. That's how Pierre says it because I think people can handle it.
I think
Polyev.
more French way of saying it is Polyevra.
Poilievre.
Polyevra.
Listen to what's his name? I can't think of his name. He used to lead the NDP. He says it right.
Okay. So the issue I have here is Pierre
Tom Mulcair. Sorry, go ahead.
has not had an actual chance to face off in an election, and that is one of the facts that PBD just got wrong in this video. He's only losing now in the polling. He was winning in the polling by over 20 points. I talked about it before, and now factually, PBD, you are wrong. It is only up for election. We don't even know when, but we will see how whatever liberal comes up against the conservative in the next election, because that was just a fact that was wrong. And I mean, there's that fact that's wrong, and I think there's one fact that is right. He needs to get in front of cameras. In today's society, we just talked about how sometimes doing business, political business in front of cameras is a bad thing. But to get the votes, you need to get your voice out there. And I don't think PBD, he needs to go on your Mostly American podcast just to get the views for you. Because I don't think Canadians, left-leaning, like most of them are watching PBD podcasts. And I think, yes, you're right, he does need to go on some things. And he has. He's gone on the Sun's Brian Lilly's podcast several times. He's gone on PBD, not PBD, the one that we're talking about.
Jordan Peterson.
He's gone on Jordan Peterson,
who
as
is a Canadian.
PBD has mentioned.
Yeah.
Yes, he's had these discussions and fairly good ones actually on Jordan Peterson's show. But I think he's got to find the right outlets, and Canada is smaller and less capable, or not less capable, I should say, but less popular at having good podcast shows. But as we're seeing from those numbers on that PBD showed in the beginning of the video, when he talked about CNN's views, it was like thousands for most of the content, and then all of a sudden Justin Trudeau said something and it was a 10 million views watched video on CNN. You know what? That was probably great for CNN, but the reality is
That doesn't help a lot of Canadians.
The podcasts get better views than the actual news does on YouTube channels and stuff. So I think, yes, he's right in the sense that he's got to get his voice out there and his message out there, but he's wrong in the sense that he's never got to go toe-to-toe in a match against Trudeau, and he's not going to. He's going to go against this new liberal now.
Yeah. That kind of leads into what I was going to say, because, you know, he stated that Pierre could not beat Justin, and that is not the case. As long as Justin was in there, Pierre's polling numbers were more than 20 points higher. If Justin had stayed leading the Liberals into the next election, I think it's highly likely that the Liberals would have been crushed. He would have destroyed Trudeau, and I don't think there's too many people that would refute that. The situation now is that he has to face a different liberal, and he hasn't known who that liberal was. I mean, he had an idea, but he hasn't known until recently. So it's a little more difficult to sort of figure out how you're going to structure your campaign when you don't know who your opposition is. But yeah, so I think it was stated several times that he couldn't beat someone, and clearly there has been no election yet, so there hasn't been the option to beat someone, the opportunity.
He's uninformed.
So he is not entirely informed on that, and that's a little bit frustrating because I've been watching PBD's videos for quite a few years.
Well, Mike hasn't. What do you think Mike's thought about it?
I don't know, but I come to expect a little bit higher because, the quality of his videos and his interviews were good. That's what sort of brought me onto watching his channel.
People make mistakes. If it
They do.
continues, we just won't watch.
But yeah,
Michael Lee hasn't watched. Why don't we ask Michael Lee? What was your reaction to the PBD podcast? Have you ever seen it before?
I've seen like little clips of it before, but nothing like that. So it was quite interesting to see their reactions to what our prime minister is saying, and our liberal leader is saying. What do you want to call him?
he's
The liberal and the
he
conservative
is
leaders.
the prime minister. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
moment.
I just didn't expect some of those reactions, and a lot. You do sound a lot like him yourself when you talk to me, Josh. Pull this off or do this, do that.
Yes,
but
there's some influence there.
Yeah, it definitely is. But it was very, very interesting. I'm curious to see what else he has out there. I have to look him up myself now and watch him.
I mean, he's American. He loves America. America gave him great opportunities to make a lot of money, and good for him. That's great. The thing is, he doesn't understand Canada. I don't know if he's ever lived in Canada.
I don't
but
think so. No,
most Americans do not understand Canada, and maybe I don't know what it is. Vice versa, what Canadians know about Americans. But the thing is, if you live here in Canada and you want to have influence in the Canadian sphere, public sphere, you have to have some distance from the US.
Yes.
And if you just simply go on American shows all the time for no good reason, they're going to brand you as an American citizen. You aren't going to have a chance in Canada and in the polls. Like it's just ridiculous. I know he would love to talk to this guy. They would probably have a great discussion.
I think they would agree on a lot of things.
They might. It would be lovely to actually find out what the real ideas are. But I'm sorry, but unfortunately, the way Canadians look at Americans and their content, they want some Canadian stuff first. Poliver, he's got to.
Poliver.
I got it wrong because I watched this video so many times I can't even say his name correctly anymore.
Polyev.
It was butchered in my mind for the next 10 minutes here. The thing here is,
Polivrier.
yeah, he needs to commit to the Canadian people first. Pierre Poilievre. He needs to do that, and people need to see him as a hardworking for the Canadian people. After he gets elected, if he gets the prime ministership, go on all the American podcasts because you'll be the figurehead. You can talk to our biggest neighbor and all of their people down there on their shows and say, this is the Canada view. Until then, he's not going on any American podcasts, I don't think, really, and he doesn't need to. PBD doesn't get it, unfortunately, but he doesn't know everything.
And I would hazard to say that Pierre's biggest obstacle at the moment is comparisons to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is extremely unpopular in Canada. Canada tends to be more left-leaning country than the U.S. Even when you compare conservatives, Republicans, liberals, Democrats, and with what's going on right now, Donald Trump is extra not popular in Canada.
Yeah.
So part of Pierre's challenge is to avoid at all costs being tied to Donald Trump politics if he's going to get elected in Canada. Because again, as I said, he's not trying to be elected in the US. Americans are not going to vote for him. He needs to get elected in Canada by Canadians. And his biggest competitor, the Liberals, are doing everything they can to be like, to tie him to Trump, to say he's Trump and look what Trump is doing to Canada, and so don't vote for him or else you're basically voting for Trump. So he can't go on US podcasts, especially ones that are very right-leaning, like PBD. But really, he needs to be seen as caring about Canada and Canada's people, and he can't be tied to the U.S. and the Republicans and Trump, because that is not going to get him elected.
You can't
with
even.
a more left-leaning
It's not
country.
even. It's far worse if he goes on a right-leaning right-leaning situation.
Far worse.
Yeah. It's absolutely detrimental to any Canadian politician to simply go to the U.S.
Yes.
It's that bad. That's what they don't understand. I think the U.S. is lovely. I have friends down there. They're great people.
Yep.
There's a lot of great things that happen in the U.S. There's a lot of great things that happen in Canada.
Yep.
But the unfortunate situation here is, like you said, Canada is more left-leaning, and there is a certain underlying character in being Canadian that we want to just say, we are different from you Americans. We may not really be all that different, but the underlying nature of Canadians is we like to differentiate ourselves from you. That's why there's an absolute distaste for this 51st state nonsense. And PBD just doesn't understand that concept. He's a little bit misinformed. Unfortunately, he's wrong on this front, but I would love to see it in the future if he gets the prime ministership, that Pierre, and then has a discussion with all these politicians to say, this is Canada that we believe in, and this is what we want to do to make the whole North American continent a stronger, more economically powerful place for everybody that lives here.
Yeah, he can't be seen campaigning in the U.S. to try and be the Prime Minister of Canada. That will not. Will not fly.
It's right. All I'm gonna say, PBD, I'm sorry you're misinformed this time. Get it right next time.
Yep, do better.